Picture this. You wake up one morning and the world looks dimmer. The words on your newspaper blur, your hands tremble as you reach for your glasses, and a dull headache lingers from the night before. You tell yourself it's probably just age catching up. But what if I told you that yesterday's innocent-looking snack, something you've trusted for decades, could be quietly fueling this decline? I'm not talking about cakes, candy bars, or soda. The real culprit is something far more deceptive. It's a fruit that almost every senior believes to be healthy. For years, you may have eaten it with breakfast, served it at family gatherings, or relied on its refreshing taste when thirsty. Yet for adults over 60, this fruit can trigger silent spikes in blood sugar, setting the stage for diabetes, nerve damage, and even stroke. Here's what most don't realize: as we age, our bodies no longer handle natural sugars the way they once did. The pancreas, which produces insulin, becomes less efficient, and the body's ability to push glucose out of the bloodstream slows down. The result: every bite of this fruit becomes a tiny burden, adding stress to your blood vessels, your heart, and your brain. Let me share the story of Mrs. Han, a 70-year-old grandmother who came to my clinic complaining of frequent dizziness and blurred vision. She proudly told me that she had cut out all cookies, fried food, and processed snacks years ago. "Doctor," she said, "I only eat natural things now. Every morning I peel 2 pieces of this fruit and eat them with my tea." She believed she was doing everything right, but her blood tests told a different story. Her fasting glucose was well above normal, and her A1C revealed months of uncontrolled sugar levels. Mrs. Han was unknowingly harming herself with the very fruit she thought was saving her health. The problem lies in how this fruit is metabolized. Unlike complex carbohydrates that release energy slowly, this fruit contains a high concentration of fructose. In younger bodies, the liver can manage this influx. But in seniors, the liver becomes sluggish, less capable of processing sugar efficiently. Excess fructose is rapidly turned into fat, raising triglyceride levels and silently contributing to fatty liver disease. Add to that the natural insulin resistance of aging, and suddenly what seems harmless becomes dangerous. Many seniors argue, "But doctor, it's just fruit. How bad can it be?" The answer lies in how deceptive these sugar spikes are. You may not feel them immediately. No pounding heart, no rush of adrenaline. Instead, it's a quiet attack, one that damages the tiny blood vessels in your eyes, kidneys, and nerves. Day after day, this wear and tear accumulates until suddenly you're facing blurred vision, tingling in your feet, or even a mini-stroke. Another key factor is the lack of fiber when the fruit is consumed in certain forms. While eating a whole piece might slow absorption slightly, many seniors prefer it as juice or sliced without pairing it with protein or fat. This strips away the protective effect, leaving behind a sugar bomb that enters the bloodstream in minutes. The elderly body, already struggling with glucose regulation, simply cannot keep up. Before we go further, let me pause to say this. If you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss another health tip made just for you. If you find this information eye-opening, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 so I can make better content tailored for you. The shocking truth is that what you thought was a healthy daily habit might actually be the very reason your blood sugar numbers creep higher each year. And it doesn't stop at diabetes. Over time, this pattern increases your risk of heart disease, worsens circulation, and even accelerates memory loss, because sugar affects not just your waistline, but your brain's ability to function. Mrs. Han's story is just one example. After reducing her intake of this fruit and learning how to pair it with safer alternatives, her blood sugar began to stabilize. But she admitted she wished someone had warned her years earlier. She said, "I thought I was protecting myself. I didn't know I was setting a trap for my health." Today, I'm going to walk you through 9 common ways this fruit silently sabotages your body after 60, with real-life stories of seniors who thought they were protecting themselves but instead found their well-being slipping away. As we grow older, the body undergoes changes that most people never consider when choosing what to eat. One of the most overlooked changes happens in how the body handles sugar. At 30 or 40, you might have been able to enjoy a sweet fruit and feel nothing more than a short burst of energy. But after 60, your body's ability to manage those natural sugars slows dramatically, turning a simple snack into a dangerous trigger. Here's why aging muscles become less efficient at absorbing glucose. Muscles are the primary storage site for blood sugar, pulling it out of circulation after meals. But with every passing decade, muscle mass declines, a process called sarcopenia. By the time you're in your 60s or 70s, you've lost a significant percentage of the muscle that once helped protect you from sugar spikes. Less muscle means less storage space, so glucose lingers in your bloodstream longer than it used to. This effect is compounded by what doctors call insulin resistance. Your cells don't respond to insulin as effectively as they once did, forcing your pancreas to release more and more of this hormone just to keep up. For years, this struggle happens silently. No pain, no warning, until one day you're suddenly diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And if diabetes is already present, the sugar surges from certain fruits can make control nearly impossible. Let me share the story of Mr. Kim, a 68-year-old retired bus driver. He had always been careful with his diet, or so he thought. Every afternoon, he'd slice up this fruit, believing it was a healthier choice than cookies or bread. For a while, he felt fine. But gradually, he noticed fatigue creeping in. After meals, his eyelids grew heavy, his hands trembled slightly, and he struggled to stay awake. One evening after eating his usual serving, he became dizzy and nearly collapsed while walking to the kitchen. When his family rushed him to the clinic, his blood sugar measured over 280 mg/dL, dangerously high. The healthy snack he'd relied on for years had been quietly overwhelming his body's declining sugar defenses. The science explains his case perfectly. A fruit high in quick-releasing fructose can overwhelm an aging pancreas in minutes, because seniors often pair fruit with tea or eat it alone between meals. The sugar hits the bloodstream unbuffered, no protein, no fat, no fiber to slow absorption, just a sharp glucose surge that stresses every organ system. These repeated surges wear down blood vessels, making them stiff and brittle, a condition that accelerates the risk of stroke and heart attack. You may ask, but doctor, isn't fruit natural? Isn't natural sugar different from table sugar? The reality is that once inside the bloodstream, glucose is glucose. Your blood vessels and nerves don't care whether it came from a soda can or a ripe piece of fruit. For seniors, the difference is smaller than you think. In fact, the natural sweetness of this particular fruit is so concentrated that it can rival a sugary beverage in its effect on blood sugar. What makes this especially concerning is that the damage doesn't happen with one big meal. It builds quietly over months and years. Each spike is like a tiny cut on the inside of your arteries. On its own, one cut might heal. But with repeated injury, scar tissue builds, blood flow weakens, and the risk of complications skyrockets. Mr. Kim's outcome is a sobering reminder. After we cut down his intake of this fruit, adjusted his meals to include more protein, and encouraged light resistance exercises to rebuild lost muscle, his sugar readings improved. But his story underscores a critical truth: once damage is done, it's not always reversible. Prevention must start before the silent surges take control. And here's the unsettling part. This isn't just about fatigue or high sugar numbers. These repeated surges gradually alter brain chemistry as well, raising the risk of memory decline. Imagine forgetting appointments, losing track of familiar places, or struggling to recognize faces, all because of something you thought was healthy. If this has you questioning your own fruit bowl, you're right to pause. Because the next danger goes beyond sugar spikes. It's about how fructose itself becomes more damaging with age, stressing the liver and triggering deeper complications. And that's exactly what we'll uncover in Section 3. When we talk about sugar, most people think of glucose, the fuel your body runs on. But hidden in many fruits is another form of sugar called fructose, and it plays a far more sinister role, especially as we age. Unlike glucose, which is used directly by your muscles and brain, fructose goes straight to the liver. In younger adults, the liver can handle moderate amounts. But in seniors, where liver function naturally slows, fructose becomes a silent poison. This is where the story of Mr. Lee, a 67-year-old retired schoolteacher, becomes a painful lesson. Mr. Lee was admired by his neighbors as someone who always chose clean eating. He cut out sweets, avoided soda, and limited bread and rice. But he had one daily ritual: he refused to give up eating this particular fruit every afternoon. "It helps me stay sharp," he would say. For years, he felt confident in his choices. But then came the subtle signs: occasional blurry vision, numbness in his fingertips, and unexplained weight gain around his waist. When Mr. Lee came to me, his biggest concern was that he was losing the ability to read his favorite books without a magnifier. He thought it was simply old age. But his blood work revealed elevated triglycerides and liver enzymes, markers of fatty liver disease, along with poor glucose control. His afternoon fruit habit, which he believed was protecting his health, was actually flooding his liver with fructose it could no longer manage. Here's why this happens. With age, mitochondrial activity, the little power plants in your cells, declines. That means your liver burns fuel less efficiently. Excess fructose is rapidly turned into fat, some stored in the liver itself, some circulating in the blood as triglycerides. Over time, this contributes not only to fatty liver but also to insulin resistance, making your body less able to regulate blood sugar. The result: a dangerous cycle of rising sugars, rising fat, and rising risks. The tragedy is that seniors rarely notice until it's too late. Unlike glucose, which can make you feel jittery or shaky when high fructose damage is silent, you don't feel your liver becoming fatty, you don't feel your blood vessels stiffening. You only notice when complications surface: blurred vision from damaged eye vessels, neuropathy from dying nerves, or even a sudden heart attack. Mr. Lee's story highlights another important truth. It's not just how much fruit you eat, but when and how. Eating this fruit alone without fiber-rich foods or protein overwhelms the body even faster. And because seniors often snack in isolation, the impact compounds. I often ask my patients, if your liver could talk, what would it say? For many seniors over 60, the answer is chilling. I'm drowning. Drowning in the very natural sugar they thought was safe. We worked with Mr. Lee to change his habits. By reducing his intake of this fruit to only once or twice a week, always with a protein source, and by adding more vegetables and resistance exercise, his triglycerides began to fall. His energy improved and his blurred vision stabilized, but he still regrets the years he spent unknowingly damaging his body. I wish I had known sooner, he told me. The lesson here is sobering. Aging turns fructose from a manageable sugar into a dangerous toxin. And while Mr. Lee's story ends with some recovery, not everyone is so fortunate. Some seniors only discover the damage after a stroke or a heart scare. And if you think fatigue or liver stress is bad, wait until you hear about Mrs. Park, who believed her fruit snacks were keeping her energized, when in fact they were the very reason she couldn't stay awake during the day. Her story reveals just how deceptive this fruit can be, and we'll uncover it in Section 4. For many seniors, fatigue becomes an accepted part of aging. You wake up tired, need a nap by mid-afternoon, and fall asleep early in the evening. It feels normal, but often it's not just old age. Sometimes that constant exhaustion is a direct signal from your body that it's drowning in sugar spikes and crashes caused by something as seemingly harmless as fruit. This brings me to the story of Mrs. Park, a 72-year-old widow who came into my office complaining of unshakable fatigue. She told me, "Doctor, I sleep well. I walk every morning and I eat healthy. But still, I feel like my energy is gone by lunchtime." When I asked about her diet, she smiled proudly. "I've cut out sweets and cakes. I only snack on fruit now, especially this one. I eat it 2 or 3 times a day. It's natural, so it must be safe." But when we checked her labs, the truth was unavoidable. Her blood sugar swung wildly throughout the day. In the morning after fasting, her glucose seemed normal, but 2 hours after eating her fruit snack, her sugar spiked above 200 mg/dL, then crashed down again. This constant roller coaster explained her overwhelming fatigue, her lightheadedness, and even her occasional mood swings. The medical fact here is simple. After 60, the body's hormonal system loses flexibility. Younger bodies produce insulin quickly and efficiently, smoothing out glucose levels. Seniors, however, have delayed insulin responses. That means after eating a sugary fruit, your sugar rises sharply and stays elevated longer. Then when insulin finally catches up, it can overshoot, causing sugar to plummet. The result: fatigue, shakiness, and irritability. For Mrs. Park, what she thought was a nourishing snack was actually the reason she couldn't make it through the day without a nap. But here's the lesser-known fact. Fructose doesn't just affect blood sugar, it alters energy metabolism in the brain. Unlike glucose, which fuels brain cells directly, fructose bypasses key pathways, leading to sluggish mitochondrial function. Over time, this slows mental clarity and increases the risk of memory decline. That's why many seniors like Mrs. Park not only feel physically drained, but also report brain fog after what they thought was a healthy snack. Her story doesn't end there. After we educated her about pairing fruit with protein or healthy fats and limiting this particular fruit to occasional treats instead of daily snacks, her energy gradually returned. Within 3 months, she told me, "Doctor, I finally feel awake again. I had no idea the fruit I loved so much was stealing my strength." And this is the painful truth many seniors must face. Aging bodies are not the same as younger ones. The very foods once considered harmless or even beneficial can become dangerous triggers for fatigue, brain fog, and metabolic disease. Now you might wonder, what about fruit juices? Surely a glass of fresh squeezed juice is safe, right? Unfortunately, juices made from this fruit are even more dangerous because they remove the fiber and concentrate the sugar into a liquid form your body absorbs in minutes. And that's exactly what we'll uncover in Section 5. When seniors think of a healthy drink, fresh fruit juice often tops the list. After all, it looks pure, natural, and far better than soda. But here's the shocking truth. For adults over 60, a single glass of juice from this fruit can be more damaging than eating a candy bar. Yeah, because it strips away the fiber and delivers a concentrated sugar hit directly into your bloodstream. Let me tell you about Mr. Choi, a 74-year-old retired accountant. Every morning, he proudly juiced 2 of these fruits, convinced it was the perfect way to start the day. "Doctor, I never touch soft drinks," he said, "only fresh juice." Yet he couldn't understand why he felt dizzy after breakfast or why his blood pressure seemed to spike whenever he skipped his medication. When we tested his glucose after his morning juice, the results were alarming. Within 20 minutes, his sugar shot up by nearly 90 points. For someone his age whose insulin response was already delayed, this spike was catastrophic. His blood vessels were under assault every single morning and he didn't even know it. Here's the mainstream fact: as we age, vascular elasticity decreases. Blood vessels stiffen, making them less able to absorb sudden surges in pressure and sugar. A high-sugar liquid like fruit juice floods the bloodstream faster than the body can respond, putting enormous strain on arteries already weakened by age. Now, for the deeper truth, the glycemic load of juice is drastically higher than whole fruit. Without fiber to slow digestion, fructose is absorbed almost instantly, overwhelming the liver and triggering sharp increases in triglycerides. This, in turn, worsens circulation, a hidden factor behind the dizziness and lightheadedness Mr. Choi experienced. He described it perfectly. "After my juice, I feel awake for a moment. Then suddenly my legs feel heavy and I need to sit down. That heaviness wasn't random. It was his circulation faltering under the burden of sugar spikes." We changed his breakfast routine. Instead of fruit juice, we recommended a high-protein shake with leafy greens and a small handful of berries low in sugar, high in antioxidants. Within weeks, his dizziness eased and his blood pressure stabilized. Mr. Choi admitted, "I thought juice was helping me. I didn't realize it was quietly attacking me." This is the hidden danger. Seniors often replace soda with fruit juice, believing it's a safer option, when in reality the concentrated sugars accelerate vascular damage, nerve deterioration, and fatigue. The body at this age simply cannot tolerate sugar floods without consequences. And here's the most chilling part: these sugar surges don't just damage circulation, they attack the nerves as well. Tingling feet, burning sensations, or numb hands are often dismissed as just aging, when in truth they can be the first signs of diabetic neuropathy. And in Section 6, we'll meet seniors who discovered too late that their fruit habit was destroying their nerves from the inside out. One of the cruelest complications of uncontrolled blood sugar is nerve damage, what doctors call neuropathy. Seniors often dismiss the first signs: tingling toes, burning sensations in the feet, or numbness in the fingers. They assume it's simply poor circulation or old age, but in reality, these are warning signs that high sugar is attacking the very nerves that control movement, balance, and even pain sensation. And once nerves are damaged, they rarely heal completely. This is exactly what happened to Mrs. Yoon, a 69-year-old grandmother who came to see me complaining of nightly foot pain. "It feels like fire in my toes," she said, "but my daughter tells me it's probably just my age." She proudly explained her diet: low in fried foods, no candy, no soda. But then she admitted that every evening she enjoyed 2 servings of this fruit, often right before bed. "It helps me sleep," she believed. Her blood tests told another story. Her fasting glucose was borderline high, but her post-meal glucose levels soared. More telling was her nerve conduction test, which showed early diabetic neuropathy. The fruit she trusted to calm her was actually fueling blood sugar spikes that silently strangled the tiny vessels feeding her nerves. The mainstream fact is well established. Seniors with diabetes or prediabetes are at high risk for neuropathy. High glucose damages the protective coating around nerves, leading to pain, numbness, and loss of coordination. But here's the lesser-known truth. Fructose is even more toxic to nerves because it generates advanced glycation end products. AGs, sticky compounds that clog and inflame nerve tissue. Over time, this accelerates nerve death, leading to the very burning sensations Mrs. Yoon described. She wasn't just imagining her pain. Each sweet bite before bed was adding fuel to the fire. And because symptoms came gradually, she never connected her evening fruit bowl with her sleepless nights and worsening balance. We worked together to remove this fruit from her nighttime routine, replacing it with a small serving of nuts and herbal tea. Within a month, her nightly burning eased, and she reported sleeping more peacefully. Though nerve damage can't be fully reversed, controlling sugar spikes slowed its progression dramatically. She told me with tears in her eyes, "Doctor, I finally slept through the night without pain. I only wish I had known sooner." This is the hidden tragedy for many seniors. What you believe is harmless or even helpful can over time destroy the very foundation of your independence. Once nerves weaken, walking becomes unstable, falls become more likely, and confidence fades. For many, it's the first step toward losing autonomy. And nerve damage isn't the only risk. In some cases, the same sugar surges that harm nerves also strain the brain and cardiovascular system. The result: sudden spikes in blood pressure and blood sugar that can push a vulnerable senior toward a stroke. In Section 7, we'll look at the frightening case of Mr. Choi, whose devotion to natural fruit health nearly ended in a hospital bed. Strokes are often described as lightning bolts, sudden, devastating, and unpredictable. But in truth, they rarely come out of nowhere. For many seniors, the groundwork is quietly laid years in advance by the foods they eat, the sugar spikes they endure, and the silent damage accumulating in their blood vessels. One of the most overlooked culprits, the very fruit so many older adults consume daily in the name of health. Let me share the story of Mr. Choi, a 74-year-old retired factory manager. He was the kind of man who prided himself on discipline. He never smoked, drank alcohol only sparingly, and exercised by walking around his neighborhood every morning. "Doctor," he said during his first visit, "I take care of myself. I eat naturally, nothing processed. I only eat fruit." And at the center of his diet was this particular fruit, 2 or 3 servings a day, often as juice in the morning and sliced after dinner. For years he felt fine, but gradually his family noticed changes. He became forgetful, misplacing items and repeating stories. His blood pressure, once steady, began to climb despite medication, and one afternoon after finishing a glass of his healthy juice, he suddenly felt weakness in his left arm and slurred his speech. Thankfully, his daughter recognized the signs of a stroke and rushed him to the hospital. He was treated in time to avoid permanent paralysis, but the scare left him shaken. When we reviewed his diet, the connection was clear. His daily fruit intake was flooding his body with fructose and glucose. At his age, blood vessels were already stiff and narrowed. The sugar surges caused repeated endothelial stress, tiny injuries inside the arteries, making clots more likely to form. Combined with high blood pressure, the risk of a clot traveling to the brain skyrocketed. His natural diet nearly cost him his life. Here's the mainstream medical fact: seniors face increased stroke risk because aging arteries lose elasticity and high blood pressure weakens vessel walls. Add uncontrolled sugar spikes and those fragile vessels are primed for rupture or blockage. Now for the lesser-known detail: fructose metabolism in the liver creates uric acid, which not only raises blood pressure further, but also impairs nitric oxide, a key chemical that keeps arteries flexible. Without it, blood vessels stiffen, blood flow decreases, and the brain becomes more vulnerable to sudden blockages. For Mr. Choi, every glass of juice was fueling this dangerous process without his awareness. After his hospitalization, we restructured his diet. We cut out the daily fruit and replaced it with low glycemic options like berries and vegetables. We also emphasized hydration and omega-3 rich foods to protect his brain and circulation. Within months, his blood pressure stabilized, his memory improved slightly, and his confidence returned. He often tells me, "Doctor, I thought I was doing everything right. I never imagined the fruit I trusted was nearly my undoing." His case is a sobering reminder what seems safe can become lethal when age changes the rules of the body. Strokes don't appear overnight. They are built silently, meal by meal, year by year, and many seniors unknowingly stack the odds against themselves with habits they believe are healthy. But here's the twist: timing makes the danger even greater. Eating this fruit at night when the body's metabolism slows amplifies the damage. Seniors often enjoy it as a bedtime snack, unaware that it sets the stage for higher morning sugars and nighttime vascular strain. And that's exactly what we'll uncover in Section 8. For many seniors, the quiet hours before bed feel like the perfect time to enjoy a light snack. A sweet piece of fruit seems harmless, even comforting. But for older adults, the timing of sugar intake is just as critical as the amount. Eating this particular fruit late at night is like fueling a fire in the dark, one you can't see until the damage is done. Why is nighttime such a dangerous window? After sunset, your metabolism naturally slows. Insulin sensitivity. The ability of your cells to absorb sugar drops significantly in the evening. What this means is that the very same fruit eaten in the morning might cause only a moderate sugar rise, but eaten at night, it sends glucose soaring and keeps it elevated for hours while you sleep. The result: prolonged sugar exposure that silently attacks nerves, blood vessels, and the brain. This is exactly what happened to Mrs. Kang, a 71-year-old retired nurse. She had always lived health-consciously, avoiding junk food and walking daily. But she couldn't shake the habit of enjoying a bowl of this fruit before bed. "It helps me relax," she explained. Yet despite her healthy lifestyle, she woke up most mornings groggy with dry mouth and pounding headaches. Her fasting glucose was consistently high, puzzling her because she believed her diet was clean. When we conducted continuous glucose monitoring, the truth emerged. Each night within an hour of her fruit snack, her sugar spiked over 200 milligauge DL and stayed elevated until 3 or 4 a.m. Essentially, her body spent the entire night swimming in sugar. This explained her morning headaches and fatigue. Her organs were never given a chance to rest and repair. Here's the mainstream medical fact: the body's circadian rhythm influences insulin secretion. At night, insulin release is weaker, so sugar control deteriorates. Seniors who already have impaired insulin response are hit doubly hard. Now for the deeper truth. Nighttime sugar not only stresses the pancreas but also fuels oxidative stress in the brain. Elevated glucose during sleep has been linked to poor memory consolidation and increased beta-amyloid buildup, the very protein associated with Alzheimer's disease. In other words, that innocent fruit bowl at 9 p.m. may be quietly undermining both your body and your memory. Mrs. Kang was devastated when she learned the connection. But with small changes, shifting her fruit intake to earlier in the day, reducing portion size and pairing it with yogurt or nuts, her fasting sugar dropped within weeks. "Doctor," she said, "I wake up clear-headed for the first time in years." Her story underscores a truth many seniors overlook. It's not just what you eat, it's when you eat it. Timing turns food into either medicine or poison. And yet the story doesn't end here, because while sugar spikes can weaken energy, nerves, and memory, there's another consequence just as deadly: the strain it places on circulation and blood pressure at the same time. In Section 9, we'll reveal how one man's nighttime fruit habit nearly triggered a catastrophic health crisis, proving that the risk is far greater than fatigue or fog. If fatigue, brain fog, and nerve pain aren't enough warning signs, let me show you what happens when blood sugar spikes collide with circulation problems. This is the hidden crisis for seniors over 60. When sugar overload meets fragile blood vessels, the outcome can be catastrophic. Consider the case of Mr. Han, a 73-year-old retired shop owner. He believed he was living the picture of health. He didn't smoke, rarely drank alcohol, and stayed active by tending his garden daily. But he had one nightly ritual. After dinner, he ate 2 large servings of this fruit. "It keeps me regular," he said. "Better than dessert." For years, he thought it was harmless. But one evening, just 40 minutes after finishing his fruit, he suddenly felt pounding in his chest. His face flushed, his vision blurred, and his daughter noticed he was slurring his words. Terrified, she rushed him to the emergency room, where his blood pressure was found at 210/110 and his blood sugar measured nearly 300 milliliters DL. Doctors warned him he was minutes away from a full-blown stroke. How could a fruit do this? The mainstream explanation is clear. Sugar spikes worsen hypertension. High glucose draws water into the bloodstream, increasing volume and pushing already stiff arteries beyond their limit. Seniors whose arteries have lost flexibility are particularly vulnerable to this sudden pressure surge. But here's the deeper truth. Fructose metabolism produces uric acid, which not only stresses the kidneys but also constricts blood vessels. This double assault, higher blood pressure and narrower arteries, creates the perfect storm for stroke or heart attack. For Mr. Han, his evening snack was no different than pouring gasoline on a smoldering fire. The irony is that he thought his fruit habit was preventing problems. He proudly told me, "Doctor, I never touch cake or candy, only natural sugar." But his healthy choice was secretly raising his risk higher than if he had occasionally indulged in a slice of cake. The cake, at least, he would have eaten sparingly. The fruit he ate religiously every night. After his hospital stay, we eliminated the nightly fruit and rebuilt his diet with low glycemic foods, added magnesium-rich vegetables to support vascular health, and timed his carbohydrate intake earlier in the day. Within 3 months, his blood pressure stabilized and his sugar readings improved. He looked me in the eye and said, "I nearly lost everything because I trusted the wrong food." This story illustrates the real danger: repetition. One piece may not harm you today, but nightly habits compound. Seniors who pair sugar spikes with fragile circulation are gambling with their independence, their memory, and their very lives. But there's hope. By recognizing the danger, you can protect yourself. And in our final section, we'll shift gears away from warnings and toward solutions. Section 10 will reveal safe brain protective alternatives, practical eating rules, and the empowering truth you can still enjoy fruit energy and independence without the silent sabotage. We've walked through story after story, and I know it may feel overwhelming. A fruit that once seemed safe, even nourishing, turns out to be a silent saboteur after 60, fueling fatigue, nerve pain, circulation problems, and even stroke. But let me pause here, because the message is not that you must live in fear of food. The message is that knowledge gives you power, and with a few simple changes, you can still enjoy vibrant health, protect your brain, and maintain the independence you cherish. Here's the core truth. Aging changes everything. Your pancreas doesn't release insulin the way it once did. Your muscles don't absorb sugar as efficiently. Your liver becomes less capable of handling fructose. That means what was harmless at 40 can become harmful at 70. Understanding this shift allows you to adapt not by cutting out fruit forever, but by choosing wisely and eating with strategy. So, what are the safe alternatives? Let's go through them. Berries, blueberries, raspberries, and strawberries are lower in sugar, higher in fiber, and packed with antioxidants. They support brain health and circulation without causing sugar spikes. Avocados. Not sweet but incredibly nourishing. Full of healthy fats and potassium, they stabilize blood sugar and protect your heart. Nuts. Almonds, walnuts, and pistachios are excellent for snacking. They provide protein and fat which slow sugar absorption when paired with fruit. Apples with skin. Eaten whole and earlier in the day, apples offer fiber and vitamins without overwhelming sugar loads. Vegetable snacks. Sliced cucumbers. Cherry tomatoes and carrots can satisfy the need to crunch without flooding your bloodstream. Herbal teas. Replacing evening fruit juice with calming teas like chamomile or rooibos helps the body wind down without sugar strain. And here are some practical rules for fruit safety after 60. Eat fruit earlier in the day when your metabolism is more active. Never eat fruit alone, pair it with protein or fat like yogurt or nuts to slow sugar absorption. Avoid juices entirely, they're concentrated sugar bombs. Never eat fruit right before bed. Your body will spend the night battling sugar instead of repairing cells. Limit high fructose fruits to once or twice a week, not daily. When seniors adopt these habits, something powerful happens. Energy stabilizes. Morning headaches fade, nerves calm, blood pressure steadies, and most importantly, fear gives way to confidence. You realize you're not a victim of aging, you're in control of how you age. I remember Mrs. Hahn, the 70-year-old grandmother who once believed she was protecting herself with daily fruit. After learning these rules and switching to berries with nuts in the morning, she told me, "Doctor, I finally feel like my body is on my side again." That's the transformation I want for you. So, as we close, let me leave you with this. Aging is not about deprivation. It's about adaptation. With the right knowledge, you can enjoy food, protect your health, and extend your independence. The very same knowledge that turns a silent saboteur into a manageable risk is the knowledge that keeps you in charge of your future. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe because every senior deserves to know how to protect their health, starting with the foods they eat. Stay strong, stay informed, and remember your best years can still be ahead.